The Arizona Coyotes and Lawson Crouse are inching closer and closer to the contract arbitration date. We're going to have to talk about that and get everyone ready for what to expect for when the day finally comes. And that's on today's episode of Locked On Coyotes.
You're Locked On Coyotes, your daily podcast on the Arizona Coyotes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the show, everyone. This is Locked On Coyotes, the number one daily podcast on the Arizona Coyotes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone for making this show your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including on YouTube. We got a great show for you guys on today's episode. We are talking about Lawson Crouse again because his contract arbitration date is inching closer and closer, Carl. We're now literally just days away. Literally, all we got to look past is this weekend, and it's here.
Yeah, it's coming down to the wire. Think of it like Monday, you have a final exam, and you have a weekend to study. Or I guess you could just bribe your teacher to make the metaphor work perfectly. That would be the optimal success. Bribing your teacher. We endorse it here at Locked On Coyotes.
Sure. In this scenario, yes.
Yeah.
In this scenario, absolutely. It's going to be interesting. You know, there are a lot of things to expect for what to happen. Obviously, there are different scenarios that could happen. One is, the Arizona Coyotes and Lawson Crouse and his agent come to an agreement on a new deal. Right, in like the deadline right before.
That is the ideal solution.
That is the ideal solution. That is option A. Option B is it goes to arbitration, and Crouse and his agent would be like, "Hey, comparable this player." Coyotes would be like, "No, I'm more like this player," which is in this contract, and they're like, and you literally just speaking in front of an arbitrator, and the way you claim it, Carl, is like, you had the team literally saying why you're not valuable. Like,
it is a player arguing like, hey, this is why you should pay me lots of money. Lawson Crouse will be like, I am coming off a 20-game season or 20-goal season, and I missed like a significant chunk of the back end. Bill Armstrong has said publicly that I am a major part of this team. And the Coyotes are going to be like, look, we said that publicly, but we just say things publicly sometimes. And sure, you're coming off a 20-goal season. Season after that, you had 4. So what's going on there? And, they are going to try and both sides get the best. And that's usually not good for the long-term relationship between the player and the team.
No, it is absolutely not. And even if it goes in favor of either side, right? No matter what, it's just because you hear what the management has to say, and it saltens things a little bit, and it makes things a little sour. You don't want it. You don't want it that way.
Yeah, players are people, and I mean, most people don't want to hear their boss talk about all the ways they suck and why they are not worth money. Like, that they have those ideas, but you don't want to hear them. And, sometimes we've heard stories about players like hearing something, you're like, man, that really shook me. Like, because you never know what the other side's going to say.
I mean, let's put it this way, Carl. Imagine you're at a workplace and you have a performance review with an independent, someone that's outside of your scope of work, that kind of like listens to what you have to say, that you've contributed, and your boss saying what you're not doing, and you're saying, hey, I need a raise, and your boss is like, no, you don't. like that's gonna hurt to you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And then like just they throw in something weird like he doesn't deserve a raise because he has weird email etiquette. And you're like, gets very self-conscious. And you're like, do I have weird email etiquette? No one's ever said anything like that to me. And yeah, that's just one of those things where like once it's said, it can't be unsaid. And, I think like if you think about like famous arbitrations, most of them, they're not with that team anymore.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. And then again, because that goes to the fact that very few like cases that elect to go to arbitration make it to the actual hearing.
yeah.
Like there were how many that elected this time around? Like 20 something?
24 looks like.
So 24 elected, and I want to say like a decent chunk of them are already negotiated and done for.
Yes.
So, and there were a lot of people who when the 24 list came out, they didn't name any names, but they said about a small handful of these will likely go to their arbitration date.
Yeah.
But you never think that one of your players is going to be one of those.
Yeah. Especially like a player like Lawson Crouse, a player who, like I mentioned, we have been told is a cornerstone piece of this team moving forward. Like what at the end of the year, the talk was that Lawson Crouse is one of the Coyotes' few untradeable players. Like if it goes from like there to arbitration, it just feels like something's broken down in the relationship between the team and the player, and that's usually not good for the future of the team being with a player.
Absolutely, and like that's the important part, right? To make sure that's the case, because you want like, and I talked about this on Monday's episode. We talked about the fact that this is a kid who's wearing an A on his chest.
Yeah.
So he's a team leader. So like, and if he, so he, he deserves to get that kind of respect too.
Yeah. Like the position he is playing with the team, both like on the ice and off, it seems like he should be rewarded. But that's the two of us. We're not running the locker room. We're not responsible for the budget. But I certainly hope that they do right by Crouse. I don't want this to be a situation where, the Coyotes feel like they win early on, but 2 years from now, Crouse walks as a free agent. I was trying to see when he is set to become an unrestricted free agent, and I could not find it on Cap Friendly. So, yeah, that's definitely like something that the team should be thinking about, the long-term relationship with the player.
Yep. We're talking about Lawson Crouse's arbitration date, which is inching closer and closer as we approach this upcoming weekend. We're going to talk more about that and other expectations in just a little bit, but first I'm going to turn to Carl for a quick word.
So I have to say, if you haven't tried Built Bar Puffs yet, you are really depriving yourself of one of life's greatest joys. And they have a brand new flavor. It is the cookie dough chunk puff. It is so good. I got some in the mail. They are that nice marshmallow. They got that really good cookie dough, and they're covered in 100% real chocolate. Tastes great. Plus, they're only 160 calories, and they have a whopping 15 grams of protein, which is great. What I want you to do is head over to built.com, and you can use the promo code LOCKED15 so you can get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com.
So now let's go into other expectations, Carl. And I guess in one way, in this, it's more of like not what to expect, but more of like just a discussion of like, um, just in general the dollar value, right? Because
Mm,
Lawson Crouse, because I think there was a there's a report I think that saying that we're making certain comparables that we're looking somewhere at the $3 to $4 million range, right?
yeah. So a couple weeks ago, Craig Morgan wrote in a PHNX article. The comparables he had: Jordan Greenway, 3 years at 3 mil at the low end. High end, looking at someone like Andrew Cobb, 5 years, 5.625 million. So
that high is a bit too much for comfort for me. I mean, like, let's put it this way: like, I do think the Coyotes should give Krause what he has earned,
sure,
and that is a fair contract, decent term, at a decent value. All things considered, what he did in the last year and himself as a leader. Yes, of course, this last year was so much different than the previous year, like you mentioned, where he only had like 5 goals. But you think of the kind of element he is as a player, right? And you give him the term, you give him what he deserves, right? That's pretty much what I'm getting at, right? Get
sure.
what he is, what he has earned at this point of his career. Um, and like, it's a tough one. It's a tough one to call exactly the number. The positive thing for this, Carl, is the Coyotes can afford, like, at this time during their rebuild, they can really afford to throw whatever the frick they want at them. Obviously,
Yeah,
we're not, within reason, right? Even that upper limit, right, is still within reason because like couple years down the road, you can still, you still have room for other stuff, right? As because they're still rebuilding, so they still have a lot of room. Like, they're barely even at the salary floor right now, so like they have a lot of wiggle room. But again, I don't think you'll go up to the 5 million, maybe 4 point something.
I I don't think it'll be in the 5 million. If it happened, I would be a little bit surprised. But I think you could definitely make a case that he deserves it. And I mean, none of us have said anything bad about Lawson Crouse on this podcast. And that's because it's really hard to. Like, there's not really an area of his game where I'm too concerned. He seems to be doing what the team wants him to be doing very well. Um, I would be concerned about term if it is something like the 5 million. Like you said, the Coyotes aren't worried about that now, but potentially in the next couple of years you're gonna be, hopefully, like when you're doing, I mean, Gunther and Cooley are probably gonna get screwed on their second deal, but yeah, but still, like, I think, if Chikrin's still around, you're going to want to have space for him because he's probably going to get a much bigger payday. Let's say Clayton Keller really emerges, because those deals, they're going to be ending eventually.
Right.
And I don't want, like, Krause on the wrong end because Bill Armstrong decided to do 7 years at 5 million. Not that I'm saying he would. That
No,
seems like
it's not going to be. No, that's too
yeah,
long term, anyways, for a rebuilding
yeah.
team.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
three
I
to
mean,
four years is comfortable.
yeah, especially because we really don't know what kind of player Lawson Crouse is going to be. He is going up, but how high is his ceiling really? What is he going to be like years down the line? He plays a very physical game. That is potentially an injury concern for any kind of long term deal like that.
Exactly. So I'm gonna try to put together a contract, and let me know what you think about this, and maybe
Okay.
you can even put something unsaid. So I'm gonna give him 3 years
Okay.
at 4.2 annual average value.
Any kind of no trade, no movement?
Put him. We'll give him modified no trade clause.
I'd be very happy with that deal. 3 years, I think that's a good term. I really like that. 4.2, and you're definitely on the lower end. I'd even go as high as 4.75. And then I wouldn't probably do any kind of like no trade, no movement, just because there's the expectation should be there that he's not going to be traded.
I think a modified no trade it gives the Coyotes a little bit of freedom in case they feel like they have to. But also they don't want to screw him over by sending him to a place that he absolutely doesn't want to go to, right? You want to do him right a little bit.
Yeah. I do kind of wonder, well, we haven't seen the deal yet, but is this going to be kind of like a thing with Bill Armstrong? Because we really don't know too much about him as a general manager outside of his drafting. Like, this deal is probably his biggest kind of like franchise defining moment that we've seen so far, unless you want to count, just bringing in Zach Cassian.
I don't know. Yeah, no, I don't think we can count that. I'm not sure about that one. But
we could find out that he's got a ruthless streak, and a player who is, in there today, like if things go bad, it could be like, I don't know. Do you see if it gets to arbitration, they start shopping Lawson Crouse?
I think depending on what the arbitrator rules and like rules for, because like if they do something that's kind of you don't want, because I don't think they want to be put in a difficult situation of a contract that they don't want to eat up, right?
Yeah. Well, like we've talked about, like once it gets to arbitration, it does feel like the relationship starts to break down a little bit. How quickly do you do that? Like, is he a player who suddenly he is not in the long-term plan, gets moved at the trade deadline, or even like before training camp with this fresh deal? Like, it's a rebuild. Anything could happen.
I think it really, I think a lot of it hinges on afterwards sitting down and having a conversation with Crouse and his agent.
Yeah.
On the future, like even after the hearing, just be like, all right, so here's now the deal that you're going to get, but let's sit down and just figure out, how things look long term, like your role here with the team, and make sure they're on the same page, right? And just kind of see what like. You don't want to just have the arbitrator swing the hammer or whatever and be like, and then just walk out. Like, that is going to create problems. Like, to at least create some kind of relationship to keep it from breaking down that much is to keep the line of communication open between the team and the agency and him and himself.
Definitely. Like, I would be very curious to know like how much like Bill Armstrong like is in touch with his players, because I'm sure that varies, but when we're looking at like the situations he has, like this Crouse deal, and Jacob Chikrin, it feels like he has a lot of calls to make this offseason. And I'm very surprised that it's getting this close. It's the Friday before his arbitration date. I had kind of hoped that this would be done by now.
Yeah, we all thought, we all really hoped, right? We all hoped it'd be done. We didn't have to talk. We didn't have to worry about anything. I mean, for us, I mean, it adds extra days of stuff to talk about. Um,
Yeah.
but you know, it's
But I'm sure if you like were to go back and listen to like every time we've talked about this, like I do wonder if there be like if we have changed in our outlooks of this, just with how close it's gotten. Like I think I first said that if it's they announce the arbitration date, that's when like maybe you should have a little bit of concern. And now look at us, we're the Friday before. Now it's still, we're early Friday and it's a big weekend, so plenty could still happen, but we're coming down to the wire.
yeah, we are coming down to the wire, and it's gonna be definitely something to pay attention to. It's gonna be interesting. How it all works. Obviously, I threw out that contract idea that you did, and that you seem to mostly agree with. Obviously, my dollar value is a little bit lower.
Yeah.
But maybe maybe that higher value does end up becoming the thing, because like maybe like right at, let's say, like the 11:59, right, to so to speak, like that the Coyotes give him what he wants. Like I don't know what he wants, like, but
Yeah. I mean, well, if that happens, the next time Bill Armstrong is negotiating, like there's kind of the assumption like, oh, I could just wait until the last minute, maybe wait him out.
yeah, that's true. Like, and you don't like see now the Coyotes have put themselves in a really difficult situation, right?
Yeah. It is the first major test for Bill Armstrong, and we are waiting very patiently to see what happens. And I think this is really going to help us like decide like next time this comes up, what are we looking at? Trying to see who's the next restricted or unrestricted free agent we need to really be concerned about.
Let's also remember, obviously, not arbitration discussed, but Barrett Hayton still hasn't accepted his qualifying offer.
Yes. So I wonder what that negotiation is, or even if they're just like, "Hey, Barrett, we're gonna handle Crouse, and we're gonna put you on the due immediately after Crouse."
Yeah. Hopefully that's at least something, like, because that's another thing to discuss. But Christian Fischer would be the next person up.
And then McBain and Smith. That would be interesting.
Jack McBain won't be arbitration eligible to this next one. Neither will Smith. The next
All right.
arbitration eligible players are Cam Dineen and Christian Fischer.
Gotcha. I don't foresee either of those being really dramatic.
No, they won't be, especially since they're not as big contributors, right? Like,
yeah.
So,
I'm just imagining Christian Fischer being like, "I'm gonna take you to arbitration," and the guy is being like,
Christian Fischer,
you sure about that one, Christian?"
Christian Fischer's like, "I think I'm worth $2.5 million a year." Coyotes are like, yeah, more like 1.5.
Yeah. 175. Although hopefully, maybe Fischer has a great season, but
I mean,
yeah,
maybe he has a great year coming up, but like even then, I don't think, like, obviously none of us think that that's going to be an issue. So
it's at least a good thing that we're talking about Lawson Crouse in this way. Like the way last season ended, did you really think that like there would be a contract dispute? Like you said, like for a player like Fischer, like that's not really an issue. If Crouse had another like 4-goal season, we would not be talking about his arbitration like hearing.
If he, like, I think there would also be a lot to be said, about that. But also where would we be if Crouse didn't get injured and had like a 30-goal season?
I'm not sure. I don't think he would have had a 30-goal season. Like,
But
he
like,
would have had to go.
I mean, he missed what, 12 games?
He played 65, so that is 17.
He missed 17 games, so 25-goal season.
Yeah. 23, baby. We could do that math.
I mean, let's put it like Carl. That down the stretch, everyone was freaking.
Everyone was hot.
Yeah.
And he probably would have gotten time with Schmaltz. So sure, let's say. I think we would still be talking about the fact that the year before he had four goals. And you know, you would probably be at where I was, I would say, if he stayed healthy and got hot, like in that 4.75.
Yeah.
But that is also like hey, this is a hot streak. This is a recency effect. This is not like something that you should maybe go long term on. I think he had an impressive season, and if he was slightly more impressive, I don't know. Like, I think it's diminishing returns at that point.
Absolutely. I mean, which is why we're discussing shorter term, right?
Yeah.
Like 3 years. I think you and I definitely agree on that. Like, that is like 2 years is just like a slap in the face to Lawson Crouse. Like 4 years, maybe 5 years is too much.
Unless, like Crouse is like, hey, I want a short-term deal, and I want to prove it contract, like, and then I get that long term, because if he thinks the team is hot on him, like, that could be a good way to go.
Maybe he also wants. I mean, like, because now I'm trying to think the other way around. Maybe the opposite of what we've been thinking all along. Maybe he wants that an easy out in case he can't handle more and more years of this rebuild.
It could be. He was at that Tempe City Council meeting, though, right?
I believe he was. It was
Keller, Fisher, and
I think it was Crouse.
I can never remember if it's Crouse. No, it was Schmaltz.
Oh, it was Schmaltz.
Yeah. But I'm not sure. We are going to find out more, I'm sure, after the contract signs. I'm sure he'll be talking more about like what he's looking forward to, what his next plans are. Like you said, Bill Armstrong is going to need to have a conversation with him either way.
Yeah, no matter what, there absolutely has to be an open communication line from now, even like obviously from now and even from weeks ago, and past the arbitration date. Even if they make a negotiation before it gets to the arbitration date, like you have to keep the line of communication open. Like it is an absolute necessity to make sure that one of the alternate captains of the team is happy.
Yeah. It's we are in a very delicate year of the rebuild, and Bill's gotta earn his paycheck in these next coming months.
Absolutely. Any final thoughts you want to share before we close things off?
I just can't wait till we have something that we could actually discuss and like move forward from there. There's just so many questions about this, and goaltending. There's so many questions with the Coyotes right now.
Absolutely, which is going to make the next couple of weeks pretty nice. We're going to have hopefully in the next couple of weeks several guests come on our show. Already reached out to several. You're definitely going to like some of who we bring on. We're going to continue the Go to Game series with another guest. I'm going to tell you more about that when we get even closer to that, but it's going to be really, really fun. Anyways, that's going to be it for today's episode of Locked On Coyotes. If you like what you heard, don't forget to leave a review, like, comment, subscribe if you have yet to already. We are available everywhere you get your podcasts, including on YouTube. Don't forget to interact with us on social media. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/LockedOnCoyotes, on Instagram at LockedOnCoyotes, and on Twitter, LO_Coyotes. I am personally at Robyn_Leano. That's Robyn with the Y_LEANO. Carl Pavlock is at Carl Pavlock FFH. Interact with us, ask a question you might have. We might answer right back, or on a future episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast. Thanks again, everyone, for tuning in today's episode. Hope you guys are staying safe out there. Hope you guys are staying healthy. And don't forget to howl on.